So I'm pulling up the agenda. And I'm assuming the first thing is call for public comment. I guess there's no call for public comment. Am I allowed to say that and move on?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at your agenda, but I have had to scroll down 6 times because you were so nice and sent out about 5 emails.
So the next one, Madam Chair, I asked, since I just sent the minutes out today, if to defer to November to allow time for the commissioners to properly review. And I
Okay,
can just add it, I'll send it out again and then add it with the following minutes for this month.
I'm sorry,
okay, I make a motion,
the
this is a
mic is
motion.
not good.
I'm sorry?
Where you are, the mic is not good.
Oh, I'm
You need to
sorry.
put it pretty
I'm sorry.
closer.
I'm sorry, my apologies. No, Doris, I was saying that I just sent out the minutes today, and if we could defer approval till next month to allow adequate time, since I didn't send it out ahead of time, to give you guys enough time to review it. The September meetings, minutes.
So do we need a motion on that?
I
No.
so move.
Ah,
Okay,
I
yes,
second.
we're gonna move, okay,
All right.
got it.
thanks, Doris.
Let me jot it down for the minutes, thank you.
Okay. And next on our agenda, this is really bad. Instead of gabbing, I should have been pulling up my agenda.
I got it pulled up.
Okay. Here, it says agenda items for tomorrow. All right,
So the next thing is, I think, from the last meeting, because Matt's not gonna be here till after 7:30,
right.
just taking time to prep for his arrival for the meeting. I don't know if there's last minute, items that the commission may want to work out.
Okay. Do we have, I think there was at one point going to be several people getting together to propose an agenda. I recall that there were a few issues that we definitely wanted to raise, but I will defer to others if they wanted to start. So one of the issues I remember we were going to raise was that this building was, had several elements that were inaccessible. They might not violate the letter of the ADA, but they were not friendly to people in the county. And we were considering identifying those for Matt. That's one thing I remember.
Did I left one because
Yeah, it was, we had a whole list. And the ones I remember are, Doris, you were going to mention how the lighting in this relatively new building is not at all friendly to people who use voice magnification. Is that correct?
So which are you talking about? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
I'm
No,
probably wrong.
I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to think of my prompts, and because I've been through a family crisis the last 2 weeks, I just wasn't even thinking on it, that's why I haven't written anything. You know, I did mention concern about the signage on these restrooms, which took off the pictorials that say male and female, and yet they left on the words, so it's not a correct sign.
Okay,
So throughout, I think, there may be incorrect signage from the perspective of design for the ADA. They're also pretty high for the reach of somebody using their hands to read it. But they may be from the previous, I'm not clear, I'm almost certain that previously they had the pictorials up there and took them off or something. or got new signs that took them off, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, well, I think long ago when we discussed this, which I didn't brush up on either, and I'm sorry to hear about your family issues.
And then the other issue is that unless somebody tells me otherwise, because of but this is only a furnishings issue, because of the new design out here in the lobby, I have no idea where the signage is that says there's an assisted listening system. And that I know to be a requirement ever since 504 before the
Okay, Doris, I'm not taking notes because I would request that you raise those issues for us as part of the agenda, please.
Oh, I don't know. I know we discussed all this.
Yes, we did, and I think I asked you to discuss them, and I'm thinking you said yes, you would. So would you go?
Yeah, I did,
Okay.
but I can't remember whether I did them before in a less formal way.
Oh,
Yeah, like,
well,
so
doesn't
that's
matter
what
if you
I
say
think
it twice.
So, and one of the bigger issues for me is just one big issue, and it is the fact that the installation of high-intensity white blue lights in this building with the renovation has made it far more difficult to navigate for a person with a vision impairment that is light sensitive. And I have at least 3 of them, and I've had people in the public say that about this building and other buildings that have these high intensity lights. And even out on the street, like up at Clarendon, where they're using high intensity street lights, it just washes out all the contrast.
Okay, great. So I think that's a great thing for our agenda. Wait, you look like you wanted to add?
Are they LED lights? Is that what it is, Doris, when they replace them with the LED?
No, they're
intense lighting?
LED, but they're using the fluorescent
I remember yours.
bulb
I
with
see.
white.
Oh, about the
They're
back.
not, but even downstairs in the lobby, they're using the warm yellow bulbs,
Right,
but
oh, yeah.
they're terrible.
Yeah, and, oh, go ahead.
Doris,
Hmm?
do you remember, or do you still have issue with the elevator lights? Because I know
Oh,
I
the
do.
issue of the elevator
Yes,
lights.
that was.
Actually, I tell you that is one that scares the hell out of me. The elevators, in addition to the lighting environment generally, the elevators are framed by lights that are at different intensities. And so that is very new, but it is cropping up everywhere. And in here, I always felt the lights inside the elevator were fine, and the way the environment outside of the elevator was fine. So you could see the contrast as you were deciding whether the door was open or whether you were going to enter the shaft. Not the shaft, but the cab. And now that they have all these high intensities all over the place, and they frame the door of the elevator, it creates a situation where I feel like I'm walking into a black hole. And because I have the awful memory of in another county, somebody who, this was not a blind person, actually, it was a fully sighted person, but there was some issue between contrast, dark elevator, and tended to be dark elevators inside and lighter outside.
Okay,
That
Doris, I'm
person
sorry to stop.
Walked into the shaft
Yeah.
and thought the elevator was open. And
I'm sorry to
I
stop you.
feel that every
but,
time I'm here.
Because we only have 4 minutes, I just want to identify. I'll tell you the 2 just for expedience. You had mentioned, the 2 that I remember, you had mentioned that the bathrooms, and that they may be ADA, but they certainly weren't effective for somebody who the VA actually sanctioned your wheelchair. But you could say it however you want. And then you had issues? Do you want to?
I don't know what those doors are made out of, but those are not light.
They're not right?
No, they're not light, they're not easy to open up
Okay.
Are you talking about the ones downstairs or up here?
here.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and so I'm going to be careful to specify that these might not be ADA requirements, but we are the Disability Advisory Committee, and it's our role to make sure that the county designs things as friendly as they can to be open for people with disabilities.
Can I recommend that to, or, would you be okay with me asking about this? Would it be okay for me and her to pull up the matter around the bathrooms not being accessible? Matt?
Oh, yeah, I was just talking to Courtney about that and how, well, anyway, so that would be great. So I just want to see, did we have any other issues in the next 2 minutes that we wanted to bring up? I was going to mention that when the renovations were going on, we didn't feel like the county did a very effective job of ensuring that things were still accessible. That's the only other thing I can remember. Yes.
When they host the public events
Oh, yeah.
in this space, it was not accessible or
Oh,
fire
yeah.
safe.
That's a
That was
good
the
one.
thing, was that, like, no one cared.
So
Like,
which one of you wants to bring up wheelchairs and which one of you wants to bring up that?
Did I bring up blue?
you can do whatever. you
Yeah,
want.
it's just better to have different people speak.
Yeah.
Okay,
Are you okay with that?
Oh, yeah,
yes, George.
you can do all the talk.
No, we all, as commissioners, we all have to take part in this because at the end of the day, we're talking to a county board member about this. So it's best for him to understand from everyone in the room. We all have various levels of disabilities, some physical, some developmental, and some mental. Sorry.
Karen, did you have an issue?
I think just going back to, we're talking about universal design, right? That this
Oh, yeah,
meets,
mention that.
right, that this meets, the facility may meet the ADA, but it's not, it's about usability and universal design.
Excellent, I think that's excellent. Doris, I know that you don't want to sign off on the specific list that we're talking about, so just say it in as you said it, we're about referencing the,
I just want to clarify two things about the specifics, meaning, how we're going to present that. First, my concern is that the county spent money to redesign restrooms downstairs that were already accessible, at least under the law, and then put in restrooms that are of a lesser standard. What I mean by that is that the requirement is 50% of clustered units. No, not more than 50% clustered units shall be accessible, rather than at least. So it's using a standard that sets a ceiling and it's not just a floor.
right,
And which is what you're talking about with
yeah,
with universal design.
okay,
And rather to use the term, that we at minimum should be
Right.
making this a model of ADA
right,
accessibility, but we could go further.
Right.
But the term universal design bothers me because there is no standard.
So Karen, I'll make part of that message, but could you make that message as part of the livability that you were, all right,
Right.
great. So I know we were thinking that there might be some things we wanted to mention about county issues outside of this building, because there was this whole idea of going on a walk and pointing out problems. And so we're not doing that, at least to my knowledge, but he is coming. So if anyone has a repetitive, horrible thing that they repeatedly see that they need the county to take care of, I say we bring it up here.
Sidewalks,
You know, sidewalks.
please, those things.
Something about sidewalks, be specific,
Yeah.
be specific.
Them being damaged and tearing up wheelchairs.
Oh, good.
Um,
And Karen?
Yeah, uneven. A friend using a wheelchair, she almost fell over. It was near the Quincy Street Library, near the baseball field.
I've fallen over my scooter as a result of,
Yeah, it was terrifying.
and it's often the ones, and I believe you already mentioned this, it's the ones where they try to get fancy
Yes.
and they put down the red cobblestones.
The fake paver.
Yeah.
The other day I actually fell in my wheelchair.
Oh,
This is a 400-pound wheelchair, and because of an uneven sidewalk.
Oh, my goodness.
wow,
Why?
wow.
Say
Okay.
that again, please.
So basically, I was out with my pair buddy, and I fell in my wheelchair. 400 pounds. Like, if you consider the fact that these sidewalks are so uneven that wheelchair users are now going to the road,
Yes.
Yeah,
then yeah, we need to be pressing
yeah, and they
Matt
know
on the
this too.
matter.
Now, I'm
So-
asking, where are you talking about it? How is it in relationship to? You said something about brick pavers.
Oh, no.
Yes, I did, that was my fault. What I suggested was, since we have Matt coming anyway, and the commission wants to talk about things other than in this building, did anyone have a burning issue? And you did, and then I jumped in and interrupted and called it pavers.
And
Suzette?
The issue I would love is that the buttons for crossing are made at an accessible level.
Okay,
There are too many intersections that I go to that I cannot press or reach in a wheelchair, the cross
Okay.
button.
you guys remember those two things that you just now are gonna talk about. Doris remembers hers, Karen, you remember yours. Alexa, did you want to mention anything about Star or any particular thing? Because we should have everyone talking.
I mean, I'd be glad to co-sign either the stuff about sidewalks or the stuff about how, when this building was originally being renovated, it was really unclear where people were supposed to go and how they were supposed to get there. So I'd be glad to chime in on those if you guys would like.
Okay, great.
well,
So the accessibility of the traffic signals could be combined together and really should be combined together with the lack of spoken word.
Oh, yeah,
Traffic signals and the, not dispute, but the resistance of the transit people here in Arlington to hear the advice of this commission that they use spoken word as a preference. The state law codes may give them three preferences, but they chose the false preference, which the blind community and everybody else has said is not effective and safe.
okay, so I think
Along with the accessibility buttons.
I'm just gonna start with this side of the room, with you, and Karen, and then let Doris, because you have so many more specifics and you can talk about actual requirement, I'm gonna start with, then, we'll have you go. And then, Alexa, to reinforce anything. How about that?
Okay, so go after Doris, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. I'm just adjusting.
Do you have any issues you want to raise?
Do I?
Yeah, you're a member, you're allowed.
I mean, I'm happy to lend support where I can. I think many of mine are similar to the concerns that Doris has. You know, as someone who is relatively low vision, the lighting, particularly here in the courthouse, is something of concern. I think that LED lighting can be particularly difficult. So I know Doris knows the ins and outs in terms of how to communicate that to Matt and make sure that gets across, but I'm at least happy to lend some more credibility, at least in terms of what the experience is like, right?
Okay, well, we can start with you and you can start with the lighting. And then as we go to Doris, then you'll be able to put in the specific.
So bathroom, so bathroom for me and sidewalks. No, right?
And you are going to do I thought you were gonna do the bathroom, so now I can't.
And he wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay, so you don't want to cover anything. Okay.
Wait, I thought you were doing that event thing. That was-
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And the buttons on the.
Right.
Just rectify, just
Yeah.
clearing everything up because my brain is like, it's a little bit of a nerve-wracking meeting because we have our council member coming in.
He's just thinking.
I'm just jittery right now. 2 meetings with 2 council members in one day.
Wow.
I had a meeting with Takis earlier today.
Oh, I like talking.
Can we have them go to a meeting?
Well, I mean, if you ask Courtney, she seems to be able to do anything.
Hey, Courtney, can we please invite Takis? Can we?
Yeah, I mean,
It's up to the commission.
what would you like Takis to discuss?
Actually, before Matt gets in, Takis and I, way before we started working with the commission on changing space, Takis and I have been talking about getting adult changing stations implemented across the county over a preliminary trial, and which was really nice of Matt, and I know he's doing the best that he can, but Takis literally wants to go in with all cells. So right now, Takis and I are working with the vice president of Maxability to get things set up. Next week, Takis and I are personally going to go to Reagan National Airport, which just got a new adult changing station installed.
That's great.
So
That's great.
I'm excited.
I know, I can tell you're gonna get this.
A terminal A or terminal B?
I don't know, but I'm just gonna meet up with Takis and we're just gonna go to Reagan and have a little fun. Maybe get something from the new USO club they have.
Well, let's hold off on a meeting until we have specific issues. I mean, because we might have even more issues for Takis that come up tonight. So, I might be jumping ahead. Can I discuss the review of the livable conditions? What is it called, Karen? The livable conditions checklist?
For universal design.
Universal design. I can't, why didn't I come up with that? It's been around for 80 years, that concept. So I'm gonna jump ahead to that. At our last meeting, we had mentioned that the folks that had put together the universal design checklist, Doris, this was the one where the checklist says it's not designed to supplant ADA requirements, and it's not even designed to mention ADA requirements, but it would be a checklist that they hope to give to planning staff so that they could perhaps go beyond what is in the ADA and look at features that could be incorporated from this checklist. And
I sent in my
oh, you sent in your comments to them? In written-
To us.
Oh, to us.
There was a call for written, and I sent them in.
Oh, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have jumped ahead
It
into
was a
that,
long email.
but, cool.
So yeah, comments were forwarded to Commissioner Bryant, and this evening he sent the letter that he drafted.
Right.
I can pull it up, or, okay.
Okay. Oh, so now we have to put it off again because Doris hasn't had a chance to read the revised.
Right,
text.
has it, yes.
Okay. Well, their group contacts me about every week, so that's why I'm pushing it. But I appreciate that you took the time to write detailed comments because I don't think anyone else did. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I have no buy necessarily from where, you know, where it goes from here. I just wanted to make sure
Well,
what you
where-
asked for was, you know, my comments on it. Or ours.
Well, I think that they're asking to officially be put down the DAC Commission, a Disability Advisory Commission, as a commission that supports use of this checklist. And I had early on given them some language to better clarify about how it's not to supplant and be used as an excuse. I mean, it was better worded than that. So I know that was incorporated into the version you saw, but you haven't been able to see the version that Brian put together. So bottom line, when you read it, would you have any opposition to us putting our name down on a letter as supporting it?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just want to offer this. I have the letter up. If you would like, I can read it. It's not a long letter that he sent.
Okay.
If that would be helpful for the commission.
Oh, so we would support that and not the actual checklist.
Right, so from the check, yeah, in support of the checklist, but he drafted a
Right, I remember now.
a formal letter that was just sent out.
Yes, great, okay.
Okay, so dear, and he's going to enter the chair's name. On behalf of the Arlington County Disability Advisory Commission, I present our endorsement of the multi-unit residential universal design checklist for use by the Site Plan Review Committee of the Arlington Planning Commission. We find the document in its current state to be an acceptable complement to the current Federal Fair Housing Act and applicable law, local and state regulations. The commission hopes that this project becomes a jumping off point for a larger discussion of housing accessibility for our people with disabilities and the aging community within the county. We are eager to see how our fellow commissioners on the Planning Commission utilize this tool and site plan reviews in the future. The commission recognizes that this is merely a checklist, provides items that are not mandated. We hope this spurs further conversation amongst our local, state, and federal legislators on severely needed reform to ensure fair and accessible housing to all our Arlingtonians. Sincerely, and then he has your name and.
I love it, but I'm not supposed to say that. Yeah, okay, any questions, concerns, Doris?
Yeah, just two things. In the end phrase that are not mandatory, I think it should be revised to say that are not mandatory on the part of the site plan committees for the zoning, the planning commission. Either, you could use either entity with both, they're the same thing actually, to require. What I'm trying to say is during site plan, some of the things in there are actually mandatory under the law.
Oh.
And some of them, many of them are not.
Right.
But I think this is what you were trying to do, to say we realize that this is not going to be mandatory for the site plan reviews to recommend to the planning commission
Right.
that they abide by the checklist. And so I feel comfortable with that.
Okay,
And then there was one other thing, and this was in my comments. The authors of the check list use the term multi-unit. That is not a correct housing term. Multi-family units is the correct housing term and the term used by HUD in reference, and it sets accessibility standards. And I would personally prefer that we use the term, get them to use the term, or at least by example.
well, gosh, I really appreciate your careful
Unless you
review.
want to put it in, quotes or underline.
No, I think, we
So
should
that
definitely use
it's
the right
their,
term.
it's clear that it's their document to use.
So since Matt's not here, would you have objection to repeating that in such a way that Courtney can incorporate it?
Yeah, I would since Bryant drafted it and I sent it out, is it possible if you could respond back to Bryant's, to the email, or I can send it to you?
That seems like a lot. Are we allowed to just revise it because Brian's not here, it's for,
Yeah, I mean, I can, but I mean,
I don't think he would be upset.
yeah, I think he'd love to get it off his plate.
I think moving on.
So one of the things that's my concern about, being kind of technically correct with them is that at site plan reviews, frequently, the developers and architects, but particularly the developers, throw around terms. So they say ADA housing. There's no such thing as ADA housing. Well, we've made this these units make ADA compliant. See, that's what concerns me, because in the housing industry and even in
Hello.
state, local government planners, they don't use the right terms. And yet they're trying to say, and it's very hard for disability advocates at the table to say, this, is enforceable, and that is not enforceable. So.
That makes
that's
sense,
why-
Doris.
That's why I have the views I have.
Well, I mean, it's valuable because you're one of the only ones with that expertise. I mean, you are probably the only one with that expertise, so I'm glad that you have taken a close look. So Matt just joined us. Hello.
Hi, sorry to be tardy. I think I was 7:30, so I'm a few minutes late. I can give a good excuse, but
We don't even need an excuse because we handled other business.
great. I did see you had other business on your agenda, so I'm glad you were able to use the time.
Would you mind if I start with introductions?
Exactly, that'd be perfect.
Okay, I'll start with myself.
Yes,
I'm Elizabeth Frio, the chair,
it's good to see you.
and this is Doris.
I know
I'm
Doris.
sorry, was I supposed to?
You're next. Go
Doris
for it.
Ray.
Karen Odom, I think I'm the newest commissioner.
Okay.
Doris, did you go, or okay, you go.
I've known Doris and she also
Oh.
did you. So.
Every Thursday night at home.
Yes, for a long time.
Hey, Matt,
Good.
Duncan Barrett.
Good to see you,
Good
Duncan.
to see you.
Yes. Hi, Justin.
I know you've all met, I've met too, it just seems valuable.
No, it's super helpful.
Yeah.
Susan.
Suzette, good to see you. All right, well,
So we have two commissioners online.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. And Alexa?
Hi, I'm Alexa Mavridis.
hi.
And Leo?
Hi there, I'm Leo.
Hi, Leo. Thank you very much so
Leo Cantor.
what would you like to talk about? I can give a little bit of an intro and a few thoughts.
Sure, go right, sure. Go
Okay. So, so I was just coming from a regional conversation on Metro, which also I know is important to this commission. And so that is what you may know, we have a Metro funding problem that is coming within 9 months. And so with Arlington having so many stations, that is a key issue. And I will be the chair next year of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. So that's what,
Wow, that's a big job.
it's a big
I mean,
job
you
at
can do it.
a kind of an important moment. And I'm not fancy or special, it's a little bit, I'm next. And it just happens to be an important moment to work on those issues. So that is, that's a little context. I have engaged with most of you at different times. And I know that there's accessibility issues you've raised, Justin, around this building, and there's housing issues, housing accessibility and supply issues. There are also, I'm fairly familiar with some of the discussion around universal design, which is very important. And that's come up a little bit in the Plan Langston Boulevard discussion, which started for the board, first board action last Saturday, and will continue to next month. I've been thinking about bus accessibility. Several of you have brought that up as another important issue. So there are a number of, and there are different standards, obviously, that are relevant to bus work and bus accessibility, and then there's sidewalks. There are a menu of issues that are out there, and I've been trying to work on each one of them in different ways. So for example, sidewalks and bus accessibility are actually different pieces of our transportation team. And so, we've worked a lot on the edges of sidewalks, shaving the concrete there, but buses are a separate and important additional challenge. So those are a lot of the different pieces. I try to be as accessible as I possibly can as far as listening. And so I think I want to stop there and see if we can, at your discretion, kind of go around and see what are biggest items on people's minds. That's what I do in every commission that I come to visit. And listening is certainly probably a more important skill than talking for your representatives, I often think. So that's what I'd sort of lay out there is some of the issues that immediately come to mind. I'll just end by saying my own experience with our emotional learning that has come with respect to differing learning styles and differing mobilities is rooted in the schools, because I was a teacher and then I was an advocate with the National Center on Learning Disabilities. And so the teachers have recently said this last week, they've adopted a phrase that you will know, which is nothing about us without us. And so they did that with respect to the healthcare plans that were.
Well, it applies just as much to them, Doris, right?
It's very different, but it still applies. And so that is, if you need a touch point for my own sense of learning, my own journey to try to learn about differing abilities and differing ways of being included and valued in our community. That's kind of the context. So I'll just stop and listen and be eager to listen to what issues you all might want to raise.
Well, thanks for saying that, because you mentioned some issues that we weren't planning to raise, but we could. So let me just give you the context in which we briefly, we created a flexible agenda. And I believe that we were mainly focused on accessibility issues, both in this building and with sidewalks. But we could certainly talk about bus access issues and funding metro issues and STAR issues. we had planned the access issue, so I'll ask every one of you to still mention what you're gonna mention, but then go ahead and extemporate as much as you want.
Great.
So Suzette, do you want to start for us?
Ladies first.
Hi, so I think I might have been the reason this whole thing started, is that you have the opening festivities at this building, and I became stuck, and I called many people, and even Katie Crystal at the time refused to help, and there was just so many issues with that event and trying to be in a wheelchair that led to a horrible experience. And so some of it was tables in the hallway, where people standing behind the tables and then people standing in front of the tables. There was no way for a wheelchair user to gain access to these public information tables or to traverse the building at large, because I guess nobody thought about the idea of what it would be like for a wheelchair user. The doors to your inside buildings are really heavy. And so even getting into some of the areas as a citizen, you can't necessarily do. They fixed the door timing, so getting into the building now is much easier, but the elevator timing is still too short. Like, I can't get from the button to the elevator or out of the elevator before the doors close. And I have to spend 3 or 4 buttons to try to get in and out of your elevator.
Me as well.
Okay.
And that is really frustrating. And I stopped coming to these meetings because I was like, I'm not in the mood to deal with that tonight.
Got it.
Well, I feel like you raised a really interesting point that I was supposed to discuss in the beginning, which is that we are going to raise issues that are very important to us, and as Suzette said, can stop a person from attending a commission meeting, which is pretty important. And we want to say that these aren't necessarily ADA requirements, but Arlington wants to be an inclusive community and has funding to do so, at least more so than a lot of other counties in this country. So we are saying this in hopes that you will take the initiative for us to request that things beyond the ADA be tried.
Yep.
And if you have questions about whether some things are ADA accessible, Doris knows a lot of that.
Yep.
So we're lucky to have her.
Yeah.
I was hoping, were you going to bring up the issue that you brought up earlier? I want to bring it up for you because it meant so much to me. Suzette is a veteran.
Yeah.
And her wheelchair was funded by the VA. And if I understand correctly, you were told, well, this bathroom is ADA accessible, so basically blow off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get in or out of or use the restroom.
Yeah.
So it's an example of, the VA is not even thinking about ADA when they're, purchasing equipment. So it's just another reason why equipment is all over the place. People have different needs, so many different needs that we have to be willing to go beyond in order to be inclusive.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you mentioned it. We had the brief conversation, and David engaged with you, David Barrera engaged with you quite a bit. But I'm aware of the distinction between ADA and what is universally accessible and what the standards that we would like to get to. And there are, I guess I'd be interested, I know that, there are a couple of different accessibility issues that you identified that evening. And I can follow up and take a look at my notes. I have not done so before tonight. I apologize. But I think I'd be interested in understanding a little bit, because the focus of our conversation ended up being to my recollection, accessibility of the bathrooms was a big piece. But you mentioned elevators as well. Do I have the two biggest issues from your point of view?
Regarding the building, my biggest issue with Arlington County is that at least once a week, I'm having to call 911 when I'm in my wheelchair out in the public because the wheelchair has been stuck on your public infrastructure and I cannot get out of the situations.
Got it. And that could be buses, sidewalks, you name it, buildings in addition?
Dog parks, it's, even getting the signals, as I was telling people earlier, even your crosswalk buttons in a wheelchair, you
Yeah.
cannot always reach them. They are positioned in a way where a wheelchair user can't always push the button to gain.
I never even try because usually there is a lawn or some infrastructure right around me. So it's too much trouble for me to try to get my walker over the lawn, lean over and press it because I would probably fall. So these are things, but I was just I'm so glad you mentioned that because to me that lends another argument for being willing to go beyond the ADA is that if you have to call 911 and I'm guessing that they come.
They do, but
Then-
sometimes they come it takes them because it's not an emergency, unless the few times where I've been stuck in the road.
Yeah.
And lots of times it has to do with not just the physical, but the plantings, right?
Right.
That people are allowed to encroach and people don't think about.
Right.
And then I even had to call the police because they put signs on the sidewalks that say like, lock your car
Right.
or whatever else. And I'm like, as a wheelchair user, I can't get around your sign.
Yeah.
Like, don't put it on the sidewalk.
I've had to
please.
do that around construction too. And luckily, it's a small county. You can just take a picture and send an email to every single county board member. And I know I'm not supposed to do that, but that's what I do.
No, that doesn't mean you can't.
But I was thinking, economically, there's an incentive to go beyond and look at universal kind of design because you have public service coming out to help people who are getting stuck. And I've had to call the police just once for no particular reason, nothing worth mentioning. Oh, it is because my scooter tipped over because the sidewalk was uneven. But, and someone saw it because I had a bloody nose, they got worried and called the police. But one of the things I realized then was they were so nice and they really stood around and they took so many notes and they met all their obligations and they were probably here 15 minutes for something that wasn't really necessary. So with that in mind, and because they are so good and we want them to be so good, then it's economic to try to prevent them having to come out.
Yeah.
I was a little roundabout, but it makes a lot of sense in my mind.
Yeah, no, there's lots of different pieces to it. It does help. The tool, sometimes there's and I have to request stepped up accountability at times, but sometimes the reporter problem can work better than me reporting using the tool. That is sometimes helpful, but it's not at the scale and the many different issues you mentioned. I do think the crosswalk buttons and the sidewalks are additional issues. But there's a broader universal design question that we're thinking about in Plan Langston Boulevard that really is a relevant question for the county as a whole, and we have work to do. I need to think about how best to take the concerns and work on them individually and collectively. But
Well, the fact that you're working on it in Langston fits right into what Duncan was going to say about, what George was going to say about sidewalk issues.
Justin first or Duncan first?
Duncan, sorry,
Oh, I think that was Justin.
Justin.
Go ahead.
That's what I said originally. You guys made me question myself. I said Justin.
It's all
All
good.
right.
Justin?
The sidewalks are crooked and messed up, so that's a massive concern because I've actually torn up I've torn up past wheelchairs because of it. It has actually knocked several bolts loose on my current chair. Actually, one of my lights is missing because of it. Well, not missing, but gone. And I have capsized or fell over in my chair because of it.
And there was a specific type that you wanted to mention that we all agreed, I'll just do it.
Yeah, sure.
Because Arlington, when they want to be fancy and make it look nice, like in Clarendon, they do a great job in widening the sidewalks, but then people put furniture out, which is a different issue. But it seems like they like to use the red brick, cobblestone brick things, and those are notorious for popping up, and it's even unnoticeable. My family comes by and looks at it and says, "What a wonderfully accessible county," because they're not trying to use a walker or a wheelchair. So specifically, could you argue for another way that Arlington can prove that they're creating a fancy area?
Well, certainly the rebuild of the courthouse, I have heard of and think about this issue. The rebuild to this stage, it's flatter for now, but it doesn't take long. Those brick type, red brick quickly become out of joint. And so I am aware that there are many who argue that we shouldn't be doing that at all. But it's not an issue that I've yet engaged on. I have a little bit on the sidewalk issue. And it's a question of, I don't believe that there's a staffing issue of one specific person who might be sort of leading that work. We have someone working on this bus stops. We have someone working on putting in sidewalks where there are no sidewalks, which we're way better than Fairfax on, but we don't. The person here is a question. So Justin, you were going to go add other items.
Also, I forgot to mention this before the meeting, but telephone poles being put in the middle of the sidewalks.
Excellent.
I know I should have brought it up. Completely passed my mind. I'm super sorry about it. But, yeah, the telephone poles being in the middle of the sidewalk is also another concern. Literally, wheelchair users having to use the road instead of the sidewalk is not really safe.
Yeah.
Because
Most of those were put in before ADA was passed.
right.
And so that's a problem because we don't have we're missing sidewalks, as you guys know, in some cases. So it's sort of, that's an issue I specifically asked about because you sent me a picture of it. So.
And I'm so glad you brought it up because I just want to tell you something that happened a good 15 years ago now. So I can't say it's happening currently, but a neighborhood group of ours, happens to be Bluemont, brought up that on Wilson there was the poles every 2 feet and that you had to go in the street and all just exactly what Justin said. So and they said to us, well, we can't work on that because those are privately funded poles. So I respect what you're saying about how they got a waiver from ADA because it's not new construction. But that argument is just, it's maddening. It's the same argument they make when they plow the streets and they pile the snow up on all the curb cuts. Well, that's a state road, not a county road. That's a utility issue, not ours. So it sort of gets frustrating because we need people in the county to advocate for us, or it's just one person blowing in the wind.
Yeah, no, I think, so for me, I think it's important, I tried to do this with our conversation, Justin, and a little bit with our Suzette, is that I try to focus my efforts in areas and things that I can follow through to completion, and I haven't yet. There's a separate subject that Justin raised, which I think won't surprise you, which is the accessibility of the bathrooms in this facility and the universal design versus ADA. And so that is a capital improvement plan type question that I need to work on. And the same, I'm wondering if there's funding that we could work on with respect to the sidewalks in the capital improvement plan. But it's just, to your concern about just having one-off conversations, I'm just trying to collect so that I can also focus and then follow through from the commission meeting to the next. But I also mindful we got a few other folks
Right.
want to hear too. And Justin, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to raise. And we can certainly come back. Suzette, you had a hand. Did you want to just add something?
I just wanted to say that your traffic lights and your telephone poles are not because you revamped the hospital and George Mason and have done these wonderful new bridge and this whole new area, but you still put the traffic light poles and the utility poles so that wheelchair users can't use those sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm not sure I understand when you say that they're old issues. It's, that bridge just got done.
No, I think that there's different issues. So for example, on the issue of like how many bus stops we still need to build, they gave me a countable number. That was a big issue in the CIP last time. So the different cases, like up at Oakley where I live, nearest where I live, there is definitely one pole that's right in the middle that I think preceded in terms of time. That doesn't mean we should be building at the new Virginia Hospital Center when we built that out. That doesn't mean we should be building inaccessible lights. So I think there are a number of different issues, and that doesn't excuse accountability. It just is trying to give context that there's some cases where it precedes, and then there are other cases where we may not be building in the correct way to make it universally accessible, or even practically accessible. But
Duncan, for real now, could you raise your issue?
Well, Matt, thank you for being here. And, I think something that I was concerned about and that you just spoke to a moment ago was capital improvement for the courthouse building itself. I'm sure, obviously, you're much more knowledgeable on that than I am. And I think in terms of regulatory change or any process that we could take on to tackle the issue that I'm interested in, I think Doris would be able to speak to that much better than I could. But something, at least in my experience, that I've dealt with is the lighting in the building. I happen to have low vision and I have personal issues with depth perception. So a lot of the issues that my fellow commissioners have spoken about here apply to me as well. Issues with the sidewalks, issues with virtually pretty much everything else. But I think that the main thing I would be interested in hearing your thoughts on, or hearing you speak to a little bit more, was the capital improvement plan for the building, and specifically as it applies to the building's lighting.
I guess I need to understand more. So.
Yeah.
With respect to the lighting in the building, as you know, the rebuild of this building took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, so what are the lighting issues that concern you? You mean on entries?
Personally, personally for me, and I know my experience is probably going to be different than like Doris's experience or other experiences of people whose vision is just different, right? For me, the contrast between the light and the white floors on the first floor is a bit difficult for me to kind of like distinguish, right? So like,
Mhm.
the LED is a bit blinding or disorienting. And then when I go to like teach for the steps, it's a little bit difficult. It's not the end of the world, but I certainly know there are folks who might have a lot more difficulty with that than myself. And if I'm experiencing a problem, right, it's probably going to be magnified for someone whose vision is different from my own.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yep. That's one I need to do a little personal investigating and looking at.
And just so you know, Doris is scheduled to speak on a whole variety of other issues with this building.
Okay,
Lucky you.
Yes, I actually talked to David.
David Barrera. Okay,
And what surprised me is the renovation of this building. The changes were made to the lights, new paint, and such. And combined high-intensity white and or white blue lights
mhm,
are blinding to people, many people with many vision disabilities that are light sensitive. And I have 3 of the major ones: glaucoma, cataracts, and no irises. So I have had both sighted people as well as people with vision impairments note this, and I'll also besides say one of the important issues I think that the county is facing is being in a building where you have land, where you're renting. And so JBG has started to do this in all of their buildings with their fluorescent style lighting and using high intensities, which washes out all contrast and it's very articulate. And then if you notice when you are leaving to get on to the elevators, there's an architectural style these days of framing elevators as well as restroom mirrors, but anyway, elevators with lights, right? Again, fluorescent lights and the actual cab of the elevator has the original lighting, which was just fine.
yeah,
With the background lighting being soft white light, not yellow white lights
yeah,
in like most incandescent light, and then the elevator having those spotlights, it was an easy environment to navigate, and yet now every time I approach the elevator entrance in this building, I remember an incident that happened in another county where an employee during the day mistook the darkness when her elevator arrived, mistook it, thought she was getting into the elevator and fell to her death in Panino. And so, but that was before all this started. Where ECNV is situated now, KDT is doing the same thing. Where we were in 2300, they started doing the same thing. So I think on all of these issues, we need to work with you as the county board and county officials before. I don't recall boards and commissions, or at least the Disability Advisory Commission, which is advising the county on ADA and other
mhm,
disability issues, to maybe do some kind of walkthrough of the plans and figure this out. But now, I just beg you to do something about
Careful on the
this.
light.
And I wanted to say how much I appreciate you're about to be chair of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. You know that we have liaisons on the county, on the Housing Commission and other commissions that we have a liaison on the Transportation Advisory Committee who's on the phone here.
Sure.
But, I would surely like the opportunity for maybe you to visit Wamata AAC meeting and talk about, so if the county is talking about accessibility of its
Sure.
fixed route transit,
Yeah.
to do it in collaboration, because things like the streetscapes,
Mhm.
things like the ongoing issue, but a pretty recent issue about installing floating bus stops.
Mhm.
That is something that this commission has tried to get the word through to the staff, that there are issues that will make it harder and less accessible for us to use, just like this.
Yeah.
So
let's-
that's what
Yeah.
I hope goes forward here.
Got it. So let me think about the lights, and I'd not known, I'd known that
But
there
this
was.
is not an ADA requirement, you understand? It's
Yeah.
beyond the ADA, it's only because
Sure.
people, when they were developing the ADA, there were a lot of people at the Access Board who said, lighting is an accessibility issue,
Sure.
but
So
it is.
Let me just make sure I hear from
Karen,
Karen,
Yeah,
and then
that's
there's
right.
two folks on the, yeah, Karen.
Okay, thank
you so
much.
Sure.
Thank you so much for attending tonight. I just wanted to reference a specific concern. It was not mine, it was another commissioner's, and then a more general comment. So it is about audible traffic signals.
Uh-huh.
And so Doris reminded us that the state law, there's 3 options for the county to provide an audible signal. And I think this maps to, we've been using the term universal design kind of loosely, and as
Yeah.
Doris reminded us, there actually really aren't any standards. There's best practices, recommendations. But in terms of something like the audible traffic signals, there's what's really usable, right? And what you said, practically accessible.
Mhm.
So the discussion that we had here before you arrived was what is practical and usable is the spoken word, to have the signals, the audible signals with the spoken word, even though there's 2 other options. So again, that's moving away from strictly what the ADA requires, but really moving into that usability and practicality.
Got it.
and this is, we discussed this as a whole committee, and every single one of us agreed that the spoken word was better than what they seem to be installing, which is the chirping.
Mhm.
And so it's from the whole commission.
Got it. And then,
Alexa?
oh, wait a minute, did you have a broader comment, or?
Well, just that, I think we have to be careful. We're throwing out the term universal design,
Mhm.
right? But
Undefined terms or?
right, but the fact is there's the ADA, but then you've got what's actually usable.
Okay, all right.
And to that end, we are working with the Housing Commission folks on trying to identify for site planners and others specific ways where you can go from ADA requirements to actual livability requirements.
Yeah,
So, they probably mentioned they're gonna send that to you.
okay. I haven't been to the Housing Commission in 2 or 3 years, and I used to be on it, as Doris knows. So is it Alexa and then Leo?
Yeah, I just, basically, I wanted to echo some of the things about sidewalks. You may or may not know that I have been lobbying personally for one of the sidewalks near me to be fixed for quite a long time. Part of it was fixed in the summer. I'm told that another part of it is going to be fixed at some point, which I'm really glad about, but it really did take a lot of figuring out. It seems to me that one of the issues, at least that I ran into, and I imagine is an issue in other places too, is, when is this the county's responsibility? When is this VDOT's responsibility? When does this intersect with another project? And, my perspective as a person who's just trying to walk to the coffee shop and walk back without tripping and ending up with hot coffee all over myself is I would like to be able to traverse this sidewalk. I would like there to be a curb cut here. I would like these, people have mentioned that there's a lot of sort of brick paver style stuff that is old and that is, after 10 years, 20 years, I don't know how many years, it starts to shift and it's not level. And if you
Yeah.
have any kind of,
I think it's 2 or 3 years.
if you're using a wheelchair, or even if you have a mobility impairment like me, what if the wrong part of my ankle ends up in the wrong spot, and whether things were at grade at some point, which I don't think they were, but even if they were, if you've got a lot of trees or you've got a lot of, loose tile kind of things, it's not going to be steady for people for very long. So, I know that there are only so many things that can get done at with so much time, but I do. I've been a lifelong Arlingtonian, and I am starting to notice as I begin to age and as some of the places that I like to hang around begin to age as well, that it becomes harder for me to get around. And, one of the things that I do think is, hey, at some point, if I do need a wheelchair or a scooter, does that mean I can't do this at all?
Yeah.
And it really shouldn't.
Yeah.
I recently moved to a scooter, and boy, it's eye-opening. And I've worked in disability issues even.
Yeah.
So Alexa, did you have anything else, or we'll move to Leo?
Is Leo?
Leo's on, but I didn't give Leo a specific assignment, or Leo didn't choose a specific issue, I didn't assign issues. So Leo, did you have anything to tell?
Well, I personally haven't really experienced many issues getting around. Maybe it's because I don't really go outside that much, but I'm among the youngest, if not the youngest person here. And so if I wipe out, it's more like a get up in like 5 seconds and keep going kind of thing, instead of oh crap, my wheelchair broke kind of thing. So personally, like, I think the only thing I'd really say is that in some areas, I think the addition of audio signals for traffic lights would be good to have, or to have repaired. I know a couple of places, not specifically, but I've been to a couple of areas where there has either been broken lights that are audio signals, or none at all. And that's not really a function of like, oh, they don't want to do it or anything like that. I recognize that people are busy and things like that, but keeping up on the maintenance of those, I think, is a really good idea. And things like that. So hopefully that starts to maybe get some looking into and things like that. But
Sure.
But aside from that, though, like I've had a pretty good time walking around this area, and I've been here for 13 or more years now, and I mean, learning getting around, things like that. Transportation, things like that have been actually pretty good to me personally. I know that other people just don't have the same experiences I do. So.
Well, that's the point of having a lot of different disabilities on the commission. So thanks, Leo. So I actually have an issue.
Sure.
And that is one that I've mentioned to you for several years, and I completely respect that you're trying to prioritize things that you might actually be able, that are in the rubric of the county board. So I heard that and I believe that. But I'll just state it again. I think that there are many times, including those mentioned here, and a lot of the housing issues where we've come up against county staff who aren't specifically assigned to check for ADA compliance issues. And it's happened enough times that since the previous chair, Rosemary, we've been requesting some funding for a person that's specifically in charge of reviewing ADA and/or fair housing or other requirements to just do a double check. Because otherwise, you may not even realize that a lot of your code folks are saying, we just do code, we're not ADA. Or you might not even realize that there are things that should be inspected prior to building that don't even get raised at the SPRC meetings. And so we're really serious about that. If you just had somebody that could be a sounding board for us. And related to that, what it seems is that it often seems to fall on the commission for the Independent Living Center to be the person who brings up ADA issues, specifically because there's no one at the SPRC who does it, or there's no one at the county level who automatically speaks to it. And while it's great to have a commission, relying on a voluntary commission to do that level of work is hard. And maybe we should have more commission members, because every other week there's an SPRC thing that I need to assign someone to, and I'm not exaggerating.
Sure. So let me see. There are some, it's on me in part, there are some vacancies on the commission, but I do think that staff is key. There's some other issues that we're working on with respect to the jail and our criminal justice system, where
That's key.
where staff, I would like staff in order to be able to work on these issues. It doesn't, and the same is true with respect to sidewalks. I was referring to it earlier. It's not an easy, this year is not an easy year, because all of the office buildings are worth much less. So we're going to be having, fiscally, we're going to be having a challenge this year. That does not mean that I don't need to follow up on that issue, and then the others. I need to, I wouldn't have come if I didn't want to hear, absorb, and think through. I think I've said it many other times in other contexts. If I promised you that I would get all of this done, you should definitely not believe me. But what I need to do is take these items, see if I can get to the specifics of what is possible, and then where should I push that could be effective on, with the possibility of staff, with different conversations. And I think it's helpful to get the reminder of the challenge that you went through, Suzette. But in different conversations, I've gotten to different specifics, one with Justin, and so I need to take these notes, think them through. Probably I'll talk them through with David. He's a good sounding board in our office, and then work on what are the sort of things, what's the work plan that I can realistically do to follow up on them. And that's what I would propose to do. I really do think, it will help if you're able, if there's, for example, elevator timing in Bosman is a specific that I can dig into. The lights, I can look at and dig into. I hear that there's systemic issues that are necessary and are raised. I also think that, without being glib, you also know that there's systemic issues. We have 217 homeless people last time we counted, and there are much more now. And there are many systemic issues and that I'm also working on. That does not mean that we don't need to follow through on these. But what I think I should do is take these, engage, develop a work plan for where I can make a difference, trying to listen to each thing that's been said. And, I will aggressively seek to stay next year as your liaison. And I should not overpromise. My wife and I are having our first child.
Oh, congratulations.
I'm 50, so I'm going to have to, I'm going to be an older father. So this may take some time, but there's the capital improvement plan. And before I go on, I'm taking part of January as paternity leave because I want to honor that commitment. But before I go on that, I can take these notes, work them through, and think them through with both David and my aide Graham, who's raised accessibility issues on Plan Langston and a couple of other items in a very helpful way. And I can then try and loop back with you before I go out in December and say, here's what surfaced, here's what I'll try to work on in the short term, and here are other ways that you could also advocate. So that's the way I propose to try and work on the issues that you've raised.
Mention
Sure.
one thing that's kind of immediate in this time frame that you're talking about, work plan that's come up. You may not know at this point, but in September, the Housing Commission voted on legislative priorities for the Virginia General Assembly. And one of their 4 top priorities is to ask the General Assembly to increase the percentage of required multi-family residential properties that are newly built, to increase the percentage of type A units.
Yep.
And if that's done, then we will know that the code enforcement people here in Arlington will have to enforce that requirement. So if it goes from 2% to 10%, 5%, whatever it is, then they will have to enforce that. And Arlington has done such a good job, as you know, through the Housing Commission and Planning Commission in utilizing the targeted tax credits to get many buildings with 10% of the units fully accessible type A.
Yeah.
And so the next step that will help the situation for the coming generations is to increase that percentage. And it's on their agenda, and
I have seen it in the letters, yeah. So there's a lot of challenge. We have an election in 20 days, and that doesn't, both parties have been fallible and both parties have been beneficial. I have my opinions, as they're pretty well known as to, the stakes in this election for housing issues and many other issues. But
Before you put a pen away, can I give you 2 specific examples?
sure.
Okay. And then also I just want to say, I really do respect that you laid out what's possible and that you can focus on. So thank you for being straightforward. And Graham and you have both been so responsive when I
Sure.
needed something. So, well, one specific issue that we mentioned to Bryna 2 months ago, and I love Bryna, and she mentioned it would be easy to do, is the timing on these elevators.
Yeah.
I have never seen an elevator close as quickly as these do. And
Got it.
what Suzanne said, apparently, according to Bryna, that's pretty easy. The other thing is, I lived here 27 years, and I've never seen a notice asking people to keep their trash cans and cars out of the sidewalk lip.
Oh, and can we add scooters to that?
Mhm.
What?
Can we add scooters to that?
Well, you could, I mean, but this is, I actually think it might be a county requirement or something that you not leave your trash cans or block the
Yeah,
landing strip. So if that's a county requirement, then it would be so easy to put out a notice on your excellent Arlington
okay.
listers.
So now I will ask forgiveness. I'm happy to have additional conversations. My wife is 7.5 months now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna see if I can duck out now, but two people have mentioned, so if you want to have an individual conversation during the day, I'll absolutely do that. Let me work on these notes and have a conversation with Graham and with David on these. And let me do that before, before December 10th.
That's your due date?
No, it's December 18th, but
Can
I gotta be
ask
done before
One
that.
more favor?
Sure, yeah.
Is that at the courthouse, if you could add a public phone? I have been stuck in the courthouse because I can't exit the doors in a wheelchair normally, and that,
Metro,
no, at the courthouse,
over there.
actually at the courthouse.
Okay, outside?
No, when you're inside the building,
Yeah.
so like I've been in court meetings where all the security people are gone for the day, but I've still been in the courtroom and I can't exit that building. And since I'm not allowed a phone, I have to sit there and bang on doors in order to get somebody's attention. And it's usually a jailer across the way that lets me out of the building.
Got it. Okay,
But if
Those
there
are
was
reasonable.
a phone somewhere that
those are reasonable. Thank you for making the effort to be here tonight. Thank you for tolerating me trying to balance a few things at the same time and for giving me specifics. Let me be back in touch with you by December 10th.
Great. Well,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I'm trying to
Thank you.
be as good a husband as I can be while also doing my day job, which is to work for you guys. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Matt.
Yes.
Fine.
Do what?
No, it just said 3, 2, 1, adjournment.
Oh, 3, 2, 1, is it 9 o'clock?
I'm just,
No, 8:43.
Oh, 8:43. But you were suggesting we adjourn, right?
I don't know, I'm just,
So what did we decide about the letter? I guess we should do the polite thing and send it back to Leah, to Brian, to Bryant. So, yeah. Does people want that or not?
I don't think you would mind if it just got edited and sent out instead of keep on waiting.
Right.
I don't
Well,
see.
maybe I can work with Doris and Courtney after we adjourn. Is there,
That's another month, right?
yeah, well, no, because they email me.
No, I'm
every
saying
week.
it's another month before we meet
Yeah,
again.
Yeah,
So,
it
like,
would cause to be another month.
yes.
Although Brian's very responsive if I just ask him. But then we wouldn't have Doris here to remind us what, it seemed like it was four specific words after one sentence and searching for a word and replacing it. So we won't go beyond that. Okay, all right.
But do you want to vote and just let the rest of us say we approve this letter and whatever
Yes.
format you send it out, so
Yes.
that it can just go?
I make a motion to approve this letter.
Second.
Any discussion? That's it, right?
Yep.
Done. Okay.
There you go.
Courtney, is there any vital thing that I should bring up in the next 10 minutes? Meeting adjourned, but would you be willing to stay, Doris and Courtney, to maybe look at the letter? To make those edits?
With the edits, right?
Yes, there were
Yeah,
two specific
No,
edits.
that's why I kept silent, yeah.
Yeah.
I understood that to be.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Doris, and Courtney, thank you for setting up the arrangements with Matt.
ladies first.
No, go ahead. I'm not leaving quite yet.
This has been great.